Welcome back to Question Period on this Sunday. We're continuing our coverage today of the U.S. presidential election as Americans get set to head to the polls Tuesday. We've heard from former ambassadors McNaughton and Kraft and wanted to delve even further into what the outcome of the election could mean for our biggest trading relationship. Here to break down what is at stake for the Canadian economy, two members of the former NAFTA Council. James Moore is a former Conservative cabinet minister, and Hassan Yussuff is a senator and former president of the Canadian Labour Congress. Hello to both of you. Great to have you with us today. James, I'll start with you. And I wanted to ask, just based on what we've heard from the candidates so far, if you think it's a safe bet that the 2026 quote-unquote review of NAFTA will end up being a lot more.
Frankly, it all depends on what the economic environment looks like 24 months from now and the lead up to it and what the domestic political expectations are. It's a very different dynamic, obviously, under a President Trump or under a President Harris. We forget that there were 10 U.S. senators in the United States who voted against the current USMCA. Kamala Harris was one of them. And Donald Trump has said that he wants to renegotiate the USMCA because he didn't get it right, I guess, the first time. And we'll see what's on the table in a couple of years. So, there's a lot to do to rebuild the relationship. And it's a demonstration that the signing of the USMCA a couple of years ago was not the end of the process. It was a continuation of a long and enduring partnership that has its ups and downs and its fences to be mended.
As you sat around that table, Senator, 8 years ago, was that the sense that even getting this one done probably wouldn't be at the end of that story?
Well, we should never take our relationship with the Americans for granted. And it depends. This is a presidential election where trade is paramount in the debate among both candidates, one more so than the other. But I think fundamentally as a country, we have to prepare ourselves for what is likely to happen on Tuesday and how we bring the country together to face those challenges, because there will be real challenges. There's the tariff issue, which former president says he will take immediate steps to impose on Canada and other countries around the world. But equally, the USMCA renegotiations probably may not wait until 2026. He may decide to start that process much early because he has let a series of issues that he have outlined that are a problem with the agreement that he wants to fix. And I think we need to be prepared, and the country needs to be prepared, because there could be some incredible challenges if we don't get this right. But also, if the imposing of tariff comes earlier, that is going to have a major impact on some regions more so than others, but overall the country is going to have a tremendous challenge ahead.
Yeah, the tariff issue, James, is a potentially very significant one. The former president is saying that he would put a 10% tariff on all imports. Nobody who is close to him or any of his surrogates have said that Canada would be exempt from that or that NAFTA partners would be exempt from that. How worried would you be if you were the federal government?
Well, and it's worse than that. He suggested 10% year one, 15% year two, 20% year three. So it's enormously problematic, and as well as the promise to cut corporate taxes in the United States and taxes on capital gains and investment, which puts Canada really on the outside for a magnet for possible investment in the future. So it's enormously problematic for Canada. But look, the Canada-U.S. relationship is bigger than tariffs. It's actually bigger than NAFTA. This is a complicated, intertwined relationship that I'm confident will withstand whoever is elected president of the United States. I mean, we have everything from migratory birds to the Columbia River Treaty to softwood lumber, which is outside of the USMCA, which has to get renegotiated, and we're now hopefully in the final stages of something, perhaps in a lame duck session. The fuel that goes to Pearson Airport starts in Canada, goes to the United States, comes back up to Canada. We've got energy exports and that's to say nothing, by the way, of the commitment to one another when it comes to continental and international security through NATO, Five Eyes, and so on. So we are two countries that are deeply integrated in a way that's accretive and beneficial for both countries. The argument needs to be rebolstered. The specifics of USMCA and its renegotiation in 26 and the tariff questions will have to be mitigated and dealt with responsibly by whoever's the Prime Minister of Canada, next year, the year after, and the year after. And it's an ongoing relationship that requires serious thought by serious leaders who understand the complications of these matters.
Senator, when you think back to the way in which those negotiations unfolded and the role that the NAFTA Council played, is your impression also that the relationship is so intertwined and so codependent, I guess, for lack of a better term, that it will be able to withstand essentially what amounts to severe politics, but politics around the issue of trade?
I think in the end, listen, we're not going anywhere and they're not going anywhere. We need to face that reality. But I think there's a recognition that the shocks that will come if tariffs are imposed immediately, that shock will have an impact. Whatever steps will be to mitigate that, to get them to recognize that we are going to retaliate and do the kind of things to protect our own domestic industry, will send a message. And we've experienced this the last time around, but I think it's critical the country gets prepared for this. We did have a Team Canada approach the last time. I think it worked well. The premiers and others were doing their part with governors across the country and in the United States and vice versa. At the national level, everybody put aside their differences to recognize that we need to put our hands together to give the best advice to the federal government, but equally to stay connected the best way we can to see how we can help with the negotiations and other advice that might help the government mitigate, because from day to day, things will change. As you know, we don't know what the future looks like, and it will only take one things to go wrong to, of course, to disrupt the relationship even more. So I think in the context of recognizing we don't know what Tuesday's outcome is going to be, but we still need to prepare for the worst, and hopefully if that's not the case, then of course we still have challenges ahead. We'll have to deal with that. There are issues that comes out of the former USMCA around China using a back door to get access to the auto industry in the United States, and I think that's an irritant the Americans have already raised currently with the relationship. I think it'll have to be addressed by the Mexicans, and I think each country have invested severely in their sector to try and boost the sector. We are doing incredible amount of investment in key minerals for the future of this industry. So I think we've got synergies that will help bolster our both countries in the market we're trying to develop. But at the same time, we have to guard against the backdoor kind of challenges we see with China using other ways to get into the market when they're not being fair in terms of what we just did with tariff for both the steel and aluminum and EV on China's product already.
James, I was just wondering, based on what the senator said, if there is, what your view on the evolution of what the value proposition we put forward to the U.S. is going forward, be it Kamala Harris, be it Donald Trump, particularly since the view on China has solidified as an adversary in an economic sense, even in a way as well. We were talking about supply chains, friendshoring. Like, is critical minerals what we put on the table that seals the deal? Like, is there something in that vein?
Well, I mean, it's a complicated question, a complicated relationship with lots of constituent parts. The USMCA is a tripartite agreement, us, the United States, and Mexico. Tensions between the United States and Mexico have been rising for a number of reasons: border policies, fentanyl coming into the United States, Chinese investments into Mexico that find their way as a NAFTA product funneling into the United States, frankly, racial border tension politics between border states and Mexico. I mean, all of that is problematic. And then, so the tripartite relationship will be challenged, and Canada should position itself with the United States, frankly, ahead of Mexico as a reliable partner that will align in a lot of policies with the United States. With regard to China, I think it would be prudent for Canada to skate to where the puck is going. And it's very clearly there's bipartisan alignment in the United States that China is an adversary of the United States. They are not a friend. They are a trading opportunity, but not a trading partner that deals fairly within the WTO system. And Canada, I think, would be wise to, right out of the gate, frankly, if there's a new government in Canada, to be, frankly, more aggressive with China than what we've seen in recent times with regard to intellectual property, with regard to their approach to trade policies and dumping. And I think Canada would be wise to sort of see that opportunity. So how we approach these things, by the way, in the United States, it's not just the president that's being elected next week. It's the president, but also the Senate, also the House, both of which have to ratify a trade deal. Governorships are on the line. We forget one of the biggest trade irritants we've had in recent years with the United States was with the Democratic governor of Michigan, who tried to bar energy exports through the state of Michigan. So there's a lot to do with this relationship and a lot at stake with the elections on Tuesday.
Senator, last word to you. Do you think you had mentioned the sort of cross-party support and how premiers all got it? Like it was truly a Team Canada effort, and I think your council is emblematic of that. Do you think the same thing will be true should that have to be the process again?
Well, we don't have a choice. The reality is every region of this country have an integrated relationship with the United States on trade, and also people go back and forth constantly. So I think we do have our internal differences from time to time, but I think premiers are mature enough to recognize the greater interest of our country is what's at stake, and we need to work together. Some regions are better positioned than others, but overall, if we don't stand together, we're going to be harmed in a very severe way. Equally, I think we need to recognize the relationship that needs to enhance the governorship across the United States, where we have close relationship, can make a difference. Obviously, the battleground states are actually bordering Canada, all of them. The three battleground states, whether it's Michigan and Wisconsin. So premiers have relationship with those governors. I think we're going to have to amplify that, but equally, I think Canada will have to ensure that the unity we had last time around will remain this time around. But equally, I think we need to get Canadians to recognize this is an important relationship for us, which I think most Canadians know, but we don't want to jeopardize this because, if the American do sneeze really hard, the effect is going to be quite devastating for our country, and we can't afford to do that. Recognizing we have a trading relationship with other people around the world, but this is our fundamental relationship, I think economically, but politically, equally for the sovereignty and security of our nation.
Okay, I'm going to leave it on that note. Thank you very much to both of you for the conversation. I really appreciate it. James Moore and Senator Hassan Yussuff.